The year I was born in Seattle, this is what Mount St. Helens looked like. When I was a Boy Scout out camping in the area in May of 1980, this is more what it looked like. So it made me wonder. In a previous Little Did I Know, we learned about the perils brought onto humanity by Newberry caldera. But what other threats from Mother Nature should we be aware of? I mean, there's obviously drought and wildfires.
Oh yeah. Then there's always the sisters.
So the youngest of them is South Sister, middle and north are a little bit older. I believe the oldest rocks on South Sister are about 40,000 years old. And South Sister actually has by far the youngest volcanic eruption. Less than 2,000 years ago, there was a series of eruptions from South Sister, which resulted in a bunch of lava flows that make it down to Devil's Lake.
And recently, South Sister has been making headlines for having a somewhat perplexing bulge.
This is definitely the subject of ongoing scientific investigation. In fact, there's a whole team of scientists coming out to South Sister this summer to survey it more closely and try to understand how big is this blob, how deep is it, how hot is it likely to erupt anytime soon.
The good news is that if an eruption happened on South Sister today, it's likely that
it'd be exciting. We'd close down Cascade Lakes Highway, Mount Bachelor would shut down, but almost certainly everybody would be fine. It'd just be a good story.
But little did I know, there are a few silent threats out there in the form of moraine lakes.
You see, when glaciers retreat, they leave behind tons of debris and melted snow that get dammed up and form a lake called a moraine lake. The iconic no-name lake at Broken Top is a moraine lake.
And these dams occasionally break down, sometimes in a moment, therefore catastrophically, and those lakes go from being placid to a raging torrent of mud and boulders and water that rips downhill at terrifying speeds, buries everything in its path, destroys trees, and can go in some cases many miles.
And if you're thinking, hey, no biggie, in geological time these things probably don't happen very often. Well,
October 1966, No Name Lake, the East Bend Glacier on the east flank of Broken Top, rips out.
The floodwaters pick up speed, they pick up boulders, they blast through canyons, and it's normally at about this time that they basically run out of gas. But
this one went all the way down to Crater Ditch, down to Crater Creek, down to Soda Creek, hit Cascade Lakes Highway, completely covered Cascade Lakes Highway, and spilled out into Sparks Lake.
Okay, but this only happens about once every 100 years or so, right?
In 1970, just a few years later in September, the Diller Glacier, this made it all the way to Sisters, Oregon. We see this on the hydrographs, the records of how high White's Creek was, and there were people who reported that there's this big muddy surge of water flooding through White's Creek. We're fortunate, it wasn't that big, it was only about a foot above normal. But I want to emphasize that it did make it all the way to Sisters.
So when it comes to Mother Nature, we're in a region that could be better, but definitely could be worse. We don't have to live with tornadoes and hurricanes.
But every once in a while, we just might want to prepare for...
For Central Oregon Daily News, I'm Scott Elmas.